What's up, Florida? Happy Friday. I hope everyone's having a great day. It's the weekend. You made it, and our weather is looking spectacular all weekend long. And if you were with us yesterday, we were talking about what could be potential record high temperatures both today and again tomorrow on Saturday. So we'll be watching the record books to see how many records get broken for these warm temps that we're experiencing. But all in all, looking beautiful all weekend long. At the moment, we are keeping our eyes on what is some fairly persistent light to moderate to occasionally heavy rains that are happening out in our central Panhandle region in the Fort Walton Beach, Destin area, heading all the way up there towards Chipley, just to the west of Mariana. This has been pretty persistent this morning. This line has been moving continuously from up into the northeastern direction and kind of running over the same spots. And you can see that here on the rain totals. And we've got some totals here that are inch and a half, very localized spots, but it's been trailing pretty much over that same territory consistently this morning. Here, I'll bring it back to the high res radar. We'll put this in motion. So you can see it's pretty much trailing right over those same spots. So we're winding up with some localized areas, picking up some pretty decent rain amounts out there in the Central Florida Panhandle. And this has been persistent throughout the morning. Let's take a look at our satellite here. You can see this on the satellite right here, just very super narrow strip right there. Some instability pretty much everywhere else in the state. Mostly clear, fair skies this morning, looking beautiful. But this is the tail end of a boundary line that was part of the storm system up there in the Ohio River Valley that was going on yesterday. And that's quickly exiting off to the east. And so this is the very tail end of that boundary line. And it's producing just enough instability there to kick off those showers. And not really anything in the way of thunder or lightning. Not seeing any lightning or anything like that picking up on the radar here. So this is not severe weather by any means, but some persistent heavy rains. So definitely much needed rain. We'll take whatever we can get. So let's get back to satellite here. We'll jump over to, this is our simulated future radar here, the HRRR model. And you can see that rain just as it was showing on the radar there. And this is kind of taking a look into the future here throughout the rest of the day. And we can see some of that activity rather persistent there out in the extreme western Panhandle all the way up until about 6 p.m. Before that clears out. So let's take a look and see what that total looks like as well. And yeah, we can see we've got some pockets of inch and a half totals there in very narrow local spots. So some much needed rains, folks. We'll take what we can get. But unfortunately, not looking like much for the rest of us. But hey, lucky for you folks out there in the Panhandle. Before we jump into some more weather, I wanted to share this with you. I don't know if anybody else saw this, but it popped up on my feed last night, and I thought it was hilarious. This is down in Collier County earlier this week. I think it was on Tuesday. But the highway patrol was down there doing what the highway patrol does and monitor for speeders on the highway when this occurred. This is a rancher down there who lost one of his cattle. And so he gets out on horseback and lassos this thing along the side of the highway. And the FHP is actually helping out to kind of, keep the cow off the road. And just amazing. Not one of those things you see every day. I'm sure these people driving by were like, what in the world is happening here? But it was a scene like right out of the Wild Wild West. But that came up on my feed yesterday, and I got a good laugh out of that. That was very, very funny. For those of you who don't know, Collier County is all the way down there in southwest Florida, Naples being the biggest city in Collier County. But this occurred, I think it was a Highway 82 right over here. It runs from Fort Myers all the way down to State Road 29, just north of Immokalee there. So obviously this is all agriculture, farmland out there. So no surprise that we've got some cattle roaming around out there. But pretty funny. I thought that was fun to watch. Also upcoming this weekend is the Jupiter Seafood Festival. If you haven't been, go check it out. Awesome, awesome time over there in Jupiter. It's just beautiful. One of my favorite places in Florida. But check it out. This is a fantastic festival to go to. Really good family event. Great food, good time. And if you haven't been to Jupiter before and you happen to be going down for this event, and this is not an area that you know very well, highly recommend you check out the Jupiter Inlet Lighthouse and Museum. That place is amazing. So beautiful. Take a look. I mean, how picturesque is that? I mean, so beautiful. And this is such a fun spot to go and explore with your family. This is also a very, very old lighthouse. A lot of history with this lighthouse. So a fun time. If you're going to be down for the Seafood Festival, this is a great place to go and explore while you're down there. So highly, highly recommend. Looking into our forecast models, not a whole lot of changes here, folks, from yesterday. There does seem to be a little bit more in terms of activity, in terms of, I don't know, how robust that activity looks like. So it could mean that we might have some ticking up chances for some higher values of rain, mostly in the extreme northern part of the state. But really not much of a big change from yesterday. So we'll play these through real quick, and you can see here. This is today, obviously, that rain out there in the Panhandle. We'll see that lift up to the north. And then as we get into our Saturday, again, just like what we were seeing yesterday, the concentration is right there in central Georgia and then heading up into the Carolinas. And then that kind of moves all offshore and it trails with it a very weak line of shower activity coming into the state here. Some of this looks a little bit more moderate than what we were seeing on yesterday's model, so a little bit of a slight change there. But then again, remains pretty weak and broken as it heads on down to the state. So it does not look like a mega rain producer for us. But again, we see that cold air sink down into the state right after that, which is going to be quite a drastic change after all of us being up into the 80s here. The GFS model looking pretty much identical there. You see the same scenario here. We've got the rain activity in the extreme western Panhandle that lifts up to the north. And then we get into Saturday, and then everything begins to concentrate up there in Georgia and the Carolinas. And then here's that trailing edge. And again, it just does not look like much of anything. It's like a broken line, very weak values showing up there. So not looking to be a big rain producer for us. And again, just like with the Euro, GFS also showing that cold shot of air coming down into Florida. So this is the National Weather Service blend of models showing rainfall through Tuesday next week. This does look a little bit better than it did yesterday. Again, pretty much all of our activity showing up out there in the Panhandle, and most of that is for what's happening out there this morning and during the day today. The rest of this green area is more of what happens during the frontal passage as it comes down through our area on Sunday. But again, not looking overly spectacular here in terms of potential rainfall for the state. We do have a little bit more in the 0.2 to a quarter inch type range up here in north central Florida. So that being the biggest change. But elsewhere across the state, not looking very much like a big rain producer for us, unfortunately. Temperatures, again, we are like super, super warm today. We've got middle to upper 80s pretty much surging all the way northward up into Jacksonville. And then we see that kind of continue and expand just a little bit as we get into our Saturday. Again, I expect to see some big time records going off down here in central Florida, very close to the Orlando Parks area. Probably going to see some records broken down here. And then we get into Sunday, and of course, that's going to be our transition day. Front starts to make its way down. All the heat gets pretty much suppressed down to South Florida. And then once we get into Monday, we got a much cooler day coming for us on Monday, folks. And then obviously, the big question is how low does it go on Monday? And well, this looks actually a tad bit colder than it did yesterday. So we've got some upper 20s now showing up on this well down into the Panhandle, north central Florida, and even as low as the Big Bend area there. You can see a 25 showing up down there in the Big Bend. So, this is looking like more of a moderate freeze than yesterday. Yesterday, this looked to be more of a light freeze, kind of a frost type scenario. But I mean, we may have a pretty good freeze coming for the Panhandle and north central Florida here. Northeast Florida, usually a dividing line right there along the St. Johns River. So the coastal communities look to be okay. But the western side of the St. Johns River is where we're going to see that freeze line take place. And this goes all the way down to Palatka, out there to Gainesville, Ocala, down to Homosassa Springs area. So, some pretty deep surge of cold air happening for our Tuesday morning. And then we get into Wednesday next week, still kind of a cool day. And then Wednesday night, we still have some pockets of freeze activity coming down into those same spots, but you can see it's beginning to retreat a little bit. So we've got 2 nights of potential freezes coming up for Panhandle area, north central, and localized spots down there in north central Florida, all the way down to the west coast, close to the Big Bend. But then once we get into later in the week, you can see temperatures rebound nicely as we get further into next week. So this is going to be like a 2-day event, but it does look like we have 2 mornings of some potentially, sub-freezing temperatures there across the northern part of the state. The rest of the folks down there in central and south Florida, we're looking at upper 30s to mostly middle 40s for you folks. So that's it for our weather look on Friday. Let's take a quick roundabout here for the state. We'll go out to Melbourne. Looking beautiful out there at the marina this morning. 72 degrees, light breeze. It's going to be a beautiful day over here. Let's pop on over to, we'll go to Tarpon Springs. Looking gorgeous there too. Perfect day to be out in the park taking a walk. 76 degrees. Stunning day over there. Let's pop on over to, we'll go to St. Augustine. We're at the Matanzas River there. Looking across the river over to Anastasia Island. I think we're going to see the lighthouse here at some point if our camera keeps panning. Whoop, I'm giving up. It's taking, oh, there it is. Nope, we're looking at trees still. All right, I'm giving up on the lighthouse. Let's go on over to Jupiter, down where our seafood festival is going to be. Looking gorgeous down there. Very light breeze. The water is like pretty flat there in the bay. Beautiful day. Well, we know it's raining out there in Destin. Let's check out Destin. Oh yeah. Yeah, we got some rain. Yeah, camera lens is pretty much rained over. Yeah, it's looking like a wet day out there for our Friday morning in Destin. Let's look at the Crab Island view. Yep, same thing here. So a little bit of a yucky morning out there for you folks in Destin, Fort Walton Beach, but hey man, it's rain. We'll take what we can get. We need it. Need it desperately. Let's do one more before we split for the day. I'm going to go down to Miami. No, I'm not. Looks like we lost our feed for Miami. We'll do one more. Let's go to Saddle Bunch Key. This is all the way down in Western Keys, just before Key West. That's obviously US 1 we're looking at right there. Man, crystal clear day. Looking beautiful over there. So folks, that's it for me. Looking like a beautiful weekend on tap. We will keep an eye on the potential rain opportunities as we get into our Sunday. See if any of those change. for the weekend ahead. But outside of that, have an awesome weekend. Enjoy it. Have fun with family, friends. Get out there and enjoy life. We'll see you on Monday.